Before we actually begin tuning, look at illustrations 1 and 2, which describe the arrangement of the strings and scales on the Autoharp. This will help make tuning easier. Tuning is extremely important, and you should check your tuning each time before you play or correct a sour note any time it occurs. Remember, almost always less than 1/8 turn of the tuning key will place the string in tune. Be sure you have the tuning key on the correct tuning peg and that you are plucking the same string you are attempting to tune. This is very important and at times confusing. We have designed some tuning guides that we will use in a short while to help you in tuning. If you have a piano, you can tune directly to it, being very careful to match the strings with the piano keys. Always remember that only the middle and higher octaves of the Autoharp have a complete octave or chromatic scale. That is, they contain 13 notes corresponding to the white and black keys of the piano keyboard. The lower octave of the Autoharp does not have a complete or chromatic scale of 13 notes. For those of you who do not have a piano, we will include tuning methods on this record. First, let's tune the middle octave. I will sound each note several times and you tune yours to mine. Don't worry if you can't tune yours exactly by this technique. We'll show you other methods later on. Now let's begin. I will sound my middle octave C several times and you tune yours to mine. Be sure you have the tuning key on the correct peg and that you're plucking the correct string. If your string is lower than mine, tighten to the correct sound by gently turning the tuning key clockwise. If your string is higher than mine, turn the tuning key counterclockwise. Sometimes if you tune yours just a shade higher, you can correct this by pushing with the bare fingertip fairly forcibly against the string. This will tend to loosen the string somewhat and will put it in pitch. Now, here is the middle octave C. Tune yours to this sound. Now the C sharp. Now the D. The D sharp. Now the E. The F. The F sharp. The G. The G sharp. The A. The A sharp. The B. And lastly, the C. The strings with sharps, such as D sharp and F sharp, are half steps above the D and F and are often hard to tune. Sometimes tuning them down to the same as the D or F, as the case may be, then tuning up a half step will make it easier. Let's try the D sharp. First, I tune it down to the D. Now that they're roughly the same, sounding the D, I tune the D sharp up into position. I can check this now by sounding the string just above, in this case the E, to make sure that the E is still a half note higher than the D sharp I've just tuned. Here's the D sharp, and here's the E. Now that the middle octave is in tune, we can now check the tuning of the higher and lower octaves. The best way to do this is to tune the higher note to its corresponding note in the middle octave we've just tuned. For example, I sound the middle octave G already in tune. Now, while listening to this note and with the tuning key on the G peg of the higher octave, I sound the higher octave string, and then the middle octave G, and I hear that the higher octave G is slightly flat. Now, with the lower octave G still sounding, I sound the higher octave G and tune to this. Now the two are in tune. Repeating this with each string, we move on up the entire higher octave. We also do the same thing with the lower octave, tuning from the middle that we've already tuned. Here it is important to remember that the C sharp, D sharp, G sharp strings are missing from the lower octave. In the bass octave with only the F and the G strings, you will have little trouble tuning to the corresponding strings in the middle octave. Our music editor, Dr. Walter Duda, has developed a clever method to quickly check the tuning. By pressing down firmly certain chord bars together, the same note in all of the octaves is isolated and should sound like one note. Look at illustration 5. Pressing down on chord bars F and C deadens all the notes except the C notes when the strings are strummed in this manner. One can readily correct any of the C's if they are out of pitch. As the illustration shows, by pressing down on the G minor and D minor chord bars, we isolate all of the D's. If any of these are out of tune, they can be placed in tune. And so we continue down through illustration 5. The C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp notes, however, will still have to be checked individually. An even quicker method, easy to remember, to correct the tuning when you feel the instrument is already in fairly good tune is as follows. Hold the Autoharp in your lap with the end cover to your right. Now, pressing down two chord bars simultaneously beginning at the lower left row, in this case chords B flat and C seventh, and strumming isolates all of the A sharps. Tune these together. Now move to the next two chord bars, the C seventh and the F, which isolates most of the C's, and tune these together. We continue from left to right until we have done all of the chords on the bottom row, and then we move to the top row where we do the same thing. If you have the 15 chord model, leave out the 3 diminished chords. Finally, with the harp held in the same position as above, begin at the left and push down a top and a bottom chord bar, in this case the G minor and the B flat major chords. You should have a resonant sounding chord. Continue moving to the right with the next top and bottom combination, in this case the A seventh and the C seventh, making sure that it is resonant, and of course then moving on to the right in completion of all of the chord bars. Now let's learn another method of tuning using the tuning guides. They are located on the edges of the song patterns and are 7 in number. Cut them out along the dotted lines, being careful to avoid cutting the remainder of the chart and taking pains in cutting out the notches as they are outlined. These are merely guides to make sure you pluck the proper strings an octave apart. Starting with the C guide, hold it or rest it against the last chord bar next to the end cover. This points out all of the C's so that they can be readily tuned. Move on up the scale using the D, E, F, G, A, and B templates. Now go back and tune the sharp notes individually in the manner we described in the first method of tuning. Your Autoharp should now be in good tune. One last method of tuning the Autoharp, and a method particularly useful for correcting tune quickly, is the chord method. In this method we depress a chord bar, strum all of the strings, and tune each string in the chord to the proper sound. Here I am sounding the G chord. As you can hear, one of the notes is sour, and in this case it happens to be the middle G, so that I tune it up to proper pitch. Now I sound my chord again and hear that it is in good tune. It will only be necessary to check 4 or 5 chords to ensure that the Autoharp is in good tune. The next portion of our course is concerned with the fundamentals of music, edited by our musical editor, Dr. Walter Duda.